Okay, hi everyone, well, welcome back to the training session on understanding the fundamentals of anatomy and physiology when it comes to fitness and how it impacts fitness. We're going to pick up from where we left off last week. So still looking at our anatomy and physiology, but now we're looking at more of the physiology side for fitness. I don't need to explain to you again, but the toilets are obviously through there. You know where the fire exits are, in front and behind. Okay. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along. Anything you're unsure of, just let me know. First of all, we're just going to have a bit of a recap on what we went over in last week's session. Okay. What we went over in last week's session. So did you want to just have a bit of a recap on what you can remember from last week's session?
Well, we did the muscular system, skeletal system, how anatomy impacts exercise, and the major muscle groups, and the cardiac system. That's what I remember from last week, what I've notes on and what I've been having a look at myself.
Okay, good. Okay, yep, so we covered obviously, the muscular system, like you mentioned, the cardiac system. We also covered the skeletal system. We looked at the major muscle groups and what function each muscle group performs. And then we then covered how it's important to have a good understanding of anatomy and physiology when it comes to exercise. Okay, so we're now going to move into the foundations of physiology for fitness. Okay, so this is our session 2. We're going to cover, to start with, some of the physiology basics. Okay, so that's starting with muscle contraction. So imagine your muscles as tiny bundles of springs. When you want to move part of your body, your brain will send a signal to the muscle that is involved in that movement. Okay, the signal then causes that spring to contract, pulling your bones together and creating that movement. Okay. So it's good to understand the science behind the muscle contracting. There's two main types of muscle contractions. Okay, we have our isotonic contraction. These will happen when your muscles get shorter or longer, like when you lift a weight or bend your arm. You'll be using isotonic contraction. Okay, so it's a shortening of the muscle fibers. Isometric contractions, these happen when your muscles tense up but they don't change length. Okay, so like we said about isotonic, we're either lengthening or shortening the muscle. Without isometric, okay, they are staying in one place, so they're not lengthening and they're not shortening. So a bit like when you hold a heavy object in place. Okay. Many factors affect how strong your muscles can contract, so such as the type of muscle fibers you have, how big your muscles are, and how much energy your body has as well. So all these can obviously affect how your muscles contract. Okay. Understanding muscle contraction is important for staying healthy and active. And it's also something we need to understand when prescribing exercises and taking clients through exercise as well. Any questions on that so far?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay, we're now going to move on to energy systems. So our energy systems that we use during exercise, we have 3 different types of energy systems. These systems supply the body with energy during exercise. So our first one is our phosphagen system, and that is our short term and high intensity. Okay, that's the short term high intensity energy system. It's used for short explosive bursts of activity. An example could be sprinting, jumping, throwing, or even our powerlifters will use this particular energy system. It relies on stored ATP and creatine phosphate for energy. Our second energy system is our glycolytic system. Okay, and that is moderate intensity for a short duration. So that energy system you will find will be used during moderate intensity or short duration. This exercise can normally last anywhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Okay. It breaks down glucose to produce ATP. Okay. So activities, examples of activities using this particular energy system could be a 400-meter run, okay, a 200-meter swim, or something like playing basketball or football. Okay. Activities. Moving on to our third energy system. So our oxidative system. This is our low intensity but long duration. Okay. So this system is used for prolonged low intensity exercise. It breaks down carbohydrates, fats and protein to produce ATP. Activities, examples would be walking, jogging, cycling, hiking. The predominant energy system used during exercise will depend on the intensity and the duration of the activity. So like we said, depending on what type of exercise you are doing, that will then determine what type of energy system you will be using. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for an example of that, high intensity activities will rely on the phosphagon system, while endurance activities will rely on the oxidative system. Okay. So that any questions on our three energy systems that we have there?
No.
Yeah. Okay, we're now going to move on to how physiology impacts exercise. Okay, so understanding the energy systems allow us to tailor workouts that align with specific goals. Okay, so such as if you get a client that's coming in and asking you, they're saying they want to either build endurance or they may want to increase their strength. Okay. Different exercises will primarily engage the different energy systems. So that could be anaerobic or aerobic, depending on what their goals are. This is why it's important that we understand the energy systems that are involved in exercise. That will then help us to schedule workouts and plan adequate rest periods and will then allow for optimal recovery with our clients. It's also important to consider individual variations. Okay, so people have different anatomical structures, and that can then influence their movement patterns. Okay, and their exercise responses. So understanding these differences allows us to customise workouts accordingly. So understanding those variations, those individual variations, and how they respond to exercise due to their individual variations will then allow us to design the correct type of workout. Also recognising any existing injuries or limitations will then help us modify exercise to avoid any more pain or further injury. What you should do is just have a little think into what activities, everyday activities you can think of, and what type of energy systems that you would use. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes just to have a
think I've got a few examples of that now.
I'll just give you a couple more minutes. Okay, so we'll start with our phosphagon system first. What did you come up with? Any ideas of what activities would be used?
So I think like weightlifting,
Yep.
box jumps,
Mhm.
because it's
Explosive.
a short-term
Yeah.
uh, system.
Yeah, so explosive exercises, yeah, correct. And what about the glycolic system?
So it's a moderate intensity training, interval training and team sports.
Yep, yep, so
something
you
like
can,
that.
yep, change the intensity there, so short duration but a moderate intensity, yeah.
Mm.
And what about for the oxidative system?
So that's low intensity, and I think probably something like yoga, swimming,
Yep,
moderate
at
pace.
moderate pace,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
excellent, that's very good, yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so good understanding of our energy systems there. Okay. It's also just something else to note that most activities involve a combination of energy and systems as well. So you wouldn't necessarily just, if you're doing an exercise, you wouldn't fit into necessarily just one of those energy systems, okay? So an example of that is a marathon runner will predominantly use the oxidative system, so long duration, okay, of a lower intensity. However, the phosphagon and glycolic system may be used during bursts of speed or uphill climbs. So if he starts to sprint or he starts to run on an incline, it starts to become a little bit more difficult. That intensity then is obviously increased, and the energy systems will start to change. Okay, you've got a practical task here, which we're going to come back to at the end of the session. Okay, just thinking that we're going to run out a little bit of time here. We're going to go into a practical session if we have some time at the end of the session, and that is we're going to measure heart rate, blood pressure and body composition. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, next thing we're going to do here, as you can see on the screen, we have some exercises just along here in the blue. Okay, your task for me, Wilma, is to describe the muscles that are being used for each one of those exercises. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to have a think about those exercises. At the same time, we're going to demonstrate those exercises as well, so that we can really feel for what muscles are being used throughout their activities. Okay, so I'm just going to hand out the sheet for you, and I'm going to get you to fill in those blanks for me.
Okay.
just stop it there. Okay, so we're going to go through the muscles that are used for each one of these exercises, and then we're going to take a short trip into the gym, and we're going to go through some of these exercises, some demonstrations of these exercises. That way we can get a really good idea of the muscles that are being used whilst performing the exercises. So we're going to start with the push-ups. What did you get for your push-ups, the muscles that are being used in a push-up?
I think the triceps, the pecs and shoulders.
Yeah, that's correct. Our overhead press.
Shoulders.
Yep, so we're using the shoulders primarily when we're doing that overhead press. Pull-ups.
The back muscles.
Yeah, the back muscles will also use the arm muscles in that as well as our shoulders. Okay, to pull ourselves up. Bent over rows.
I think again the back and the trapezius.
Yes, yeah. Bicep curls.
Bicep.
Yes. Okay, nice easy one there. Tricep extensions.
Triceps.
Yeah. Squats.
Your legs. Your quads, glutes and hamstrings.
Yes, that's correct. And what about lunges?
Legs and quads.
Yep. So same our hamstrings and our glutes again, used for our lower body compound movements like that. Deadlifts.
The back again.
Yep.
And legs.
Yep. So we'll be using our legs and our back, and a little bit of arm as well as we lift that bar. Calf raises.
The soleus and the calves.
Yeah, so soleus is part of one of our calf muscles there. Hip thrusts.
Hamstrings and glutes.
Yep. Crunches or sit-ups.
So the core
Yep.
and erectus abdominis.
Yep, so that's part of the core. And plank.
Shoulders and
Yeah.
core.
Yeah, because we're having to hold ourselves up there whilst tensing our core muscles. And Russian twists, another core exercise there.
The obliques and the rectus abdominis.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Good. So we're going to take our list of exercises into the gym shortly, and we will then practice some of those exercises. Okay. Just some time just to think of 3 things that you've learned from today's session and what you've taken away from today's session. Is there 3 things that you could tell me what you've
Yeah,
so?
I think 3 energy systems and the isotonic contractions, the isometric contractions, and what muscles are being used for the exercises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, good. I'm going to hand you just an online resource sheet. This is just some learning online resources that you can find on the internet. That's just going to help you with some further learning and understanding, a little bit more knowledge on anatomy and physiology, what we've covered over the last 2 sessions. Okay, so it's just really for your reading. I'm just going to run over a bit of a summary now of what we've done throughout the session. Okay, so we've discussed the muscles used for the different exercises, how physiology impacts exercise, so how it's important to have that understanding of physiology when we're prescribing exercise and performing exercises. We've also gone through the 3 types of energy systems, okay, and what energy systems, what exercises require what energy systems. We've also discussed muscle contraction, what muscle contraction is, and the 2 main types of muscle contraction. So in summary, a solid understanding of anatomy and physiology is essential for creating effective and safe exercise programs. By considering factors such as muscle groups, joint mobility, energy systems, and individual variations, we can design workouts that maximise results and minimise the risk of injuries. So that's ideally having that greater understanding of anatomy and physiology, understanding the muscle groups and energy systems. We can then prescribe much better workout plans that will maximise those results for clients. Okay, before we finish on the homework, do you have any questions for me?
No,
Today's session?
it's fine. Everything's, I've understood everything today. Yeah.
Okay, good. So you've got some homework here. You've got questions, knowledge questions. So it's your knowledge questions 1C that are required to work and complete for next week. I'm also going to hand you out a case study, which you will be required to also complete the first section of by next week. Okay, you've got your learning materials online on your Blackboard. You will be able to access that for your learning reference for your case study and your knowledge questions. Okay, any questions before we end the session?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, well, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
I will see you next week for the third part of our training session in anatomy and physiology.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're back. Do you feel like you've got a bit more of an understanding?
Oh
of
yeah,
all the
definitely.
exercises
I
being
think
used?
the actually, doing it does help to
Yeah.
for you to understand,
To understand the muscles that are being worked.
because you can feel it.
I'm just going to play you a short video here of just some exercises and the muscles being used in those exercises. So pop that on there.
Hundreds of thousands of satisfied customers all
exercise, which focuses the load on the abdominals and back extensors. Target muscles, core muscles. Co-contraction of back extenders, abdominal muscles, pelvic floor, and diaphragm. Raise one leg, pushing it straight backwards, and simultaneously lift the opposite arm and point it in front of you. Arm and back form a line parallel to the floor. Hold for about 8 to 10 seconds. Top view presenting the spinal erectors, transversus abdominis, and pelvic floor muscles in co-contraction. When you co-contract, you wake these muscles up and they work together to create a well-supported core. Keep neutral spine and abdominal bracing throughout the entire exercise.
So you can see there
Squat, ankle
that's showing you an exercise. That's showing you an exercise. It's showing you the muscles that are being worked that were lit up in red, and just showing you some common mistakes there that people make. And you can see by watching that video and being able to identify where those muscles are, it's very easy to see when the form is incorrect. So that's why it's super important that we make sure that our clients are performing exercises correctly with good and proper form. And that way the video shows the muscles that are being targeted there as well, so it makes it nice and clear for you to see what muscles are being used for that bird dog exercise. Okay. Okay, I'm going to just ask you to write 3 things that you have learned today in today's session down for me.